sir. You are live now.
Hey everybody, it's Congressman Adam Kinzinger here. Welcome to the Country First Country Over Party rally. Right now we're live streaming across Facebook, we're live streaming on X and YouTube, and we have people tuning in from all across the United States. To everyone tuning in, it's great to have you here and get ready for an exciting night. I started the Country First movement in 2021 following the January 6th attack on the US Capitol. Our mission has been clear to always put country before party, and we stand for truth every step of the way. So now in 2024, it's time to put everything we've learned to the test as we push back against MAGA extremes up and down the ballot. This election, I've been proud to lead initiatives for Vice President Harris and for Country First's effort targeting voters to get registered and ready for the polls. Last month alone, we reached 500,000 Americans, ensuring that they had all the information they needed to defend democracy at the ballot box. And over the next 27 days, we're not going to back down from the challenge to get Americans out to vote. Tonight, I want to talk to you all about the great state of Texas, where I now live and am raising my son Christian with my wife Sophia. Texas is unfortunately represented by a horrible man who's named Ted Cruz. Simply put, Ted Cruz is not one of the biggest threats to the Constitution and democracy currently serving in the United States. He is the greatest threat among many. Ted Cruz was the first U.S. senator to object to the 2020 election's Electoral College results, and during the lead up to January 6th was boasting about how he personally convinced 11 other senators to join in on a plan to delay certifying the results so that an audit would turn the election over to state legislatures where the results could be changed from Joe Biden to Donald Trump. Yes, this happened just 4 years ago. And I continue to pray each day that we learn from our mistakes and take advantage of opportunities like the one we have in 27 days to vote out Ted Cruz. Wouldn't that just be awesome? Ted Cruz does not belong in the United States Senate or in any position of power. And tonight, I'm excited to share that we have a real shot at getting him out of office. Running against Ted Cruz is Colin Allred. Colin Allred, he's currently a congressman representing Texas' 32nd Congressional District. He's a civil rights lawyer and, kind of, I think more importantly, a former professional football player. And as co-chair of the Republicans for Colin Allred, I'm proud to share that polls are showing that Colin is in a statistical tie with Ted Cruz, being within the margin of error. And recently there was a poll that actually showed him 1 point up. So tonight, I'm excited to invite onto our campfire the man himself to tell us about the race. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congressman Colin Allred. How you doing, Colin?
I'm good. I'm good, and you're looking good, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, man. It's great to have you. It was great seeing you the other day. For those that don't know, he and I got together as we announced the Republicans for Allred initiative, and had a good time hanging out. Shot some videos. It was cool. So I want to say first off, welcome. And while you and I come from different places, we found our way into politics differently. We have a lot in common. We are both raised by public school teachers. For the folks tuning in tonight, this may be many of their first times to get to know you. So I want to give you a quick moment just to say hi and introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Adam. I'm such a big fan of yours, and I appreciate you for your patriotism and for our friendship that we have. And I want folks to know that I'm a fourth-generation Texan. Okay, so you can kind of trace back these things here in our state. And Adam is a Texan. My family's been here for a bit. And I was raised here in Dallas by a single mom. I was a public school teacher, just like Adam was raised by a public school teacher. And we don't pay our teachers enough. So for me at times, I struggled growing up, but I had a great support system around me. I went to good public schools here in Dallas. Was a multi-sport athlete, president of my class, and got a scholarship to Baylor. I ended up having a chance to play in the NFL. And I was a linebacker for 5 years with the Tennessee Titans before I hurt my neck, and I had to go to law school. And so in law school, I decided to try and find ways to serve. I worked trying to help folks vote, worked in the Obama administration in several different stops. And then the election in 2016 happened, and it was a bit of a shock. And my wife and I had moved back to my hometown and to the area that I grew up in. And there was a congressman there who Adam knows, who I thought had gotten kind of lazy and wasn't really doing the job. He was a 22-year incumbent. He'd been there forever, and decided to run against him. And ended up winning and been in Congress now for in my third term. And I really appreciate you, Adam, for having me on. I want to make sure that who we are as Texans gets represented in the Senate, because Ted Cruz has been misrepresenting our great state. He's somebody who, as you know, only cares about himself. We got to have somebody who cares about all of us.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, the one thing I know about you, I mean, I know many things about you, but one of the big things is you're willing to work across the aisle. And that's frankly, if we actually want to solve these problems, you can just vote on something and, go and say, "Hey, I did this, I did this." But if you're not actually achieving anything, it doesn't make a difference. So, Texas, I keep telling people about how diverse Texas is. People from all beliefs, all walks of life, but yet when people hear about the state, they often affiliate it with Republican politics because it gets pretty crazy here. So, what can you tell us about what's really happening here and why you think Texas is ready to send a Democrat to the Senate?
Yeah. Well, we are a big, bold, diverse, rapidly growing state, and that's our strength. And that's something that I don't think Ted Cruz will ever understand, because number one, he only cares about himself, but also I don't think he cares about what's happening here in our state and to represent where we're going. And I want to fight for every Texan to realize their version of the American dream. And listen, I don't see us just kind of in partisan labels, as you said. I've been very bipartisan in my time in Congress. I'm the most bipartisan Texan in Congress. That's probably from my football background. When you're
Mm-hmm.
in football, you just don't see things that way, and you kind of realize, hey, we got to pull together and start rowing in the same direction. And so, the reason why I think we're ready to get rid of Ted Cruz is because of number one, what he's been doing. As to your point, he obviously was the architect of the attempt to overturn the 2020 election, and we can never become numb to that. But also because when we need him most, he's never there. When a storm hits our state and the power goes out in the energy capital of the world, he goes to Cancun. When that mob came to the Capitol, he was hiding in a supply closet when I was trying to get ready to defend my colleagues. We have a bipartisan bill in the Senate to try and bring $20 billion for border security to address what was happening at our southern border that no state would have benefited more than us. He takes it down. And so we've had 12 years of this nonsense, of somebody who is podcasting all the time, who's not really doing the job, who has no interest in bringing us together around our shared values. And that's why we're ready to beat him. And I don't think it'll necessarily be a win for me or for the Democratic Party, certainly. I think it'll be a win for our state because we'll get somebody who actually wants to do this job.
Yeah, and I think you and I determined we had co-sponsored hundreds of bills together, and just goes
Over
to show the
400.
bipartisan. What's that?
Yeah. Over 400. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Over 400 bills we were both on, and that goes to show the bipartisan nature of it. And by the way, when Ted Cruz finally came back from Cancun, he didn't come back because all of a sudden he's like, "Gosh, I should be in Texas." He came back because he was caught.
That's
Um,
right.
so political pundits, they always talk about the advantage of incumbents, and they make it out sometimes to seem how it's near impossible to beat an incumbent. In 2012, I had to unseat a 20-year incumbent. I beat an incumbent both in 2010 and 2012 because of redistricting. What many people here tonight don't know is that you had to do something similar. You ran against an 11-term Republican congressman, as you mentioned, to the House. What can you share with us about what you learned over the years of campaigning and how it's actually prepared you for this big challenge of taking on Ted Cruz?
Yeah, man. I think that what we've always tried to do, what I've always tried to do, is just treat Texans all the same and build a broad kind of coalition. And that's why I'm so proud to have you as our co-chair of the Republicans for All Red effort. Of course, we've had Liz Cheney here in Dallas campaigning with me, and I was proud to have her support. We just did an event in Fort Worth with a former county judge there, which is for us, for those who aren't from Texas, the county judges are the highest. That's the executive who runs our counties in Texas. Named Glenn Whitley. He'd spent 30 years as an elected official, really deeply respected, one of the most uh, you know, kind of best county judges that we had, and he endorsed me and has gotten involved. And so we're building this broad coalition of Democrats, yes, of course, but also of independents and Republicans. A lot of folks who voted for George W. Bush and who voted for Mitt Romney and for John McCain block walked for me when I ran for Congress, door knocked for me, were supporters of mine. And I think it's because I've always come at this as more about what's good for our area, what are our needs first. How can I put those above anything else, whether it's a partisan consideration or any other personal interest? And that I think has allowed folks who are looking around and saying, "Hey, listen, I don't see myself reflected in this version of the Republican Party," and say, "Well, maybe I can have a home here. Maybe we can get involved with this effort." And I think that's a really powerful coalition. It's a fundamentally pro-democracy coalition. It's a fundamentally patriotic one. And it's one that I think has been showing up in recent elections all across the country, but one that here in Texas we haven't ever put together fully at the statewide level, and that we're trying to do that and make sure we do that now. And when we do, as I said, I think it'll be really powerful for our state. We'll get a better senator, but I think we'll also get better politics here in Texas, and that'll be a real win for everyone here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And look, I think this coalition probably will have to continue past November because no matter what the election results in your race and in the presidential race, I think there's going to continue to be threats to democracy, and we have to take that serious. So I'm actually a little jealous of you because you got to represent the neighborhood of Preston Hollow in the House. I think you did for 4 years. For those that don't know, it's where former President George W. Bush has resided since leaving the presidency. So what does it mean to you to represent people that may not always agree with you on your policy or your politics? Do you ignore them and say that they're not real Americans, or what does it mean to you?
Yeah, in fact, he lives across the street, basically. I mean, they've got a lot of security from my elementary school. And,
Wow.
I visited the kids there a few years back. And listen, everybody loves to have them there. It's a safe neighborhood. You can say that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so, when I got elected, President Bush gave me a call. I didn't know it was him, and so I didn't answer. And I'm kind of, I still haven't really lived that down. And he left a really funny voicemail that I also still don't have, which is outrageous behavior. And just saying, "Hey, let's get together." And we had a great meeting, and we laughed for about an hour. And he's still the same kind of funny person that he's always been, and the kind of maxim of the guy you'd want to get a beer with is still very
Mhm.
true. And listen, I think that we are all kind of part of the same project, in my opinion. I think we're all part of the same effort, which is to bring us back to our fundamental values. And I'm proud to have represented President Bush. I'm proud to have worked with his institute here at SMU on some policy issues that they've helped, particularly when it comes to foreign policy. He and former First Lady Laura Bush have been, I think, really some of their efforts align really closely with what I want to do and what I've worked on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I know, Adam, that you did as well. And so, listen, I think that there's so much more that we can do together. And this is, sometimes when you have something traumatic happen, when you have a threat to your system, it's a stress test that you can also then understand what you need to do to repair it. And
Mhm.
January 6th was certainly that. The last few years has certainly been that. And wouldn't it be great if we come out of this with a politics that's less sharply divided, less, kind of, understood from the very get-go where all the fault lines are going to be. And that goes back to something what we used to have, which is where you'd have a lot of crossover between the parties,
Mhm.
and you'd see folks who are able to find common ground much more easily. We're about to finish one of the least productive Congresses in American history, and it's because of hyperpartisanship and because of there's a lot of folks, as we both know, Adam, who are in the House and the Senate, like Ted Cruz, who have no interest in actually getting anything done. And for us to correct that, we'll probably have to have a bit of an overcorrection. And I think coming from where I'm from, going to Baylor, being captain of the football team there. Listen, man, I know exactly who we are. I know exactly. I have a lot of some of the people I love the most in the world are might disagree with me on a number of issues, but I know we share some fundamental values.
Wouldn't that be awesome if we could just get back to that? I mean, I'm like I want you to run for president now, Colin. I love hearing that. So many here tonight. Last question for you, because I know you got to run, and you just got done doing MSNBC, I think, too. So many people here aren't into labels. They may identify as a Democrat or Republican. Yeah, sometimes they're not willing, though, to adopt to their party's entire platform. So putting country over party isn't always the easiest.
Yeah.
But in speaking with you, knowing you personally, I know that you're your own man and an independent thinker. And if the Democrats one day decided to go off the rails the way the GOP did, you'd be the first person to call them out. So, what can you share with us as to the kind of leader you are and what experiences you hold close to your heart when making those decisions?
Well, first, let me just say that you've already done this, and as you and I have talked about, all I can say is that I hope and I believe that in the same circumstance, I would do what you've done, and I think you deserve a lot of respect for that. I think that, just to be quite honest with you, history is going to be very kind to you, and so listen, I'm a person of deep faith, and my faith instructs me to love my neighbor and to try and do everything I can to bridge the divides that we have. But I think being an athlete is such a formative experience for me. I know for you, having served in the military, you have that kind of similar ethos where there is just no time when you're trying to perform or when you're trying to do something together as a team for what we used to call me guys, or folks who put themselves first, or people who are only interested in playing on divisions. Any good team you've ever come across will always be able to get rid of those folks, but also come together around some shared values. And as somebody who one of my kind of formative experiences has been leading young men in football and trying to find the ways that we can to make the most out of our talent, which especially at Baylor when I was there, we weren't that talented at all times. Uh, that has really shaped me, and so I'm just not a very ideological guy. I think that Adam, I think you know that, but also I think that most people don't see themselves that way. We have some
Yeah.
fundamental values that we align with, and then we look for folks who we share those with. And I mean, in this era, that's changing, and that's also, I think, a powerful political tool because it's going to allow us to get rid of really bad folks like Ted Cruz.
Amen. So, look, that's all the questions for me. How can people get involved with you? It seems like the election's really close, but I know money still is extremely important, particularly the last 30 days. Volunteers, calls. What's your website? What do you recommend to people to help you out?
Well, thanks, buddy. It's colinallred.com. We still have a lot of work to do. We are within what I call the margin of effort, which means
Hmm.
that this race is close enough that what we do will determine whether or not we get across that line. And this is a huge state. We have more people in the Houston metro where Adam is than in all of Arizona, right? We've got 3 times as many people as Michigan. We have a lot of work to do in terms of turning out the vote. So I hope folks will, in addition to considering financially supporting the campaign, if you can, consider knocking on doors, making some phone calls, and turning out the vote. There's nothing more patriotic, in my opinion, than helping your fellow Americans be involved in their democracy. And it's a good feeling. Every time I've done it, whether it's in my capacity as a lawyer or as a candidate, it always makes you feel better about our country because you're empowering them to then be involved with their own future. And that's exciting, right? So,
Yeah. Amen. Well, hey, brother, it's great seeing you. Good
hey, brother.
luck and have a good one. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
thanks, brother. I really appreciate you.
You bet. Take care. So, for everyone tuning in from Texas tonight, if you know anyone from Texas, family member, friend, old co-worker, it's on you to give them a call and tell them to vote for Colin Allred for Senate. This is going to be a close race. If you need to find your polling place or check your voter registration, please go to countryfirst.com/voter_registration. We're displaying it on the screen and placing the links in the chat. So, as I mentioned, tonight's theme is country over party. And so I wanted to bring on a guest that truly exemplifies what this means. A seasoned national security official, Olivia Troye has served at the highest levels of government, including in the Trump White House. She's joined me in speaking out against MAGA extremes and is joining us here tonight. Hello today.
Hey, hi, Adam. So good to see you. And by the
Yeah,
way,
you
I'm from
too.
Texas, so I'm going to be making those phone calls, and I'm telling all my relatives down there to vote for Colin Allred. So You can include me in the Republicans for Allred group, even though I'm long
Nice.
distance in Virginia. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, thanks for being here. I've appreciated your friendship over the years. What many may not know is that you and I actually were together at the DNC this year, and we watched VP Harris's speech together. Many here tonight might have not gotten the chance to meet you. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself briefly. I know you have a heart out, so we'll make this quick and tell folks about how you got started in DC.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me tonight. And look,
Sure.
sitting in that box, watching your speech along with your wife, Sophia, was very emotional for me. And I was just so proud of you and just
Thank
so
you.
grateful for your voice. It really just it means a lot for the country. And I agree with Colin that you'll be remembered in history for certainly doing the right thing. So,
You too.
so much
You too.
appreciation for you.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I started my career in Republican politics. I started at the Republican National Committee back in the day, fresh out of college. I was actually an intern there as an Eisenhower intern and later served in the Bush administration. I served early on in my career in the Pentagon and deployed to Baghdad and other places, and then joined the Career Intelligence Service, especially after 9/11. I just felt very driven to serve in the national security community and just do everything I could to protect Americans and prevent a terrorist attack again from ever happening on our soil. And I did serve in the Trump administration. I started the first 2 years in the Trump administration at the Department of Homeland Security as leading one of their intelligence branches there, and then I served as Mike Pence's Homeland Security and Counterterrorism advisor. So in that role, Mike Pence used to call me the bad news bearer because when I was coming into his office, it was never good news. So it was just unfortunately whatever crisis was happening. And now, I just, given the roles that I had served in, I did become a very outspoken critic of Donald Trump and really felt strongly that he was unfit for office and remain feeling strongly that way today. And we're seeing it sort of play out in his demeanor, even in terms of what's happening right now in the aftermath of a natural disaster when so many people are hurting.
Amen. Amen. So you've been out on the campaign trail. You're sharing the message of putting country over party. There's definitely a broader story of what it truly means. And what I mean by that is there's thousands of public servants like you who've served in Republican administrations and Congress, who've taken a stand against the extremes, and they're doing their part. This election and defending democracy, they're clearly deeply personal to you as it is to me. Share with us what within your life and experiences kind of made you this way.
Yeah, I think those of us who serve in national security and I've deployed to the military, I'm grateful for your service, Adam, and
Thank you.
serving the country in your in office as well in public service. And I think for me, it's a moral obligation, to be honest, because we take an oath to serve for the greater good. And I felt like it would be and the antithesis to continue to support such a movement like the extremism that Donald Trump represents when it goes against everything that I've worked for in national security in terms of protecting our democracy, serving for the greater good, and putting really the American people, because that's what it is. And there were many nights in the Trump White House where I would walk out and, look out to the White House and think about the fact that I was there not really for myself, I was there to serve the American people. And I think for a lot of us that are Republicans, I'm certainly a lifelong conservative. I was raised in a very conservative Texas family. I think the values that made us Republicans, traditional Republicans, conservative values of like strong national security, foreign policy, individual privacy, liberties, freedoms, those are the tenets that I think I still believe in, right? Those are the values that made me a
Mhm.
Republican. They're still the values that make me a Republican today, but they're also the values that make me say, no, this is a moment to put our country over the party because what Donald Trump represents and this extremism that we're seeing in the Republican Party in terms of some of these people that continue to perpetuate these horrible extremist narratives in it, I think are dangerous and they stand it for everything that isn't what traditional Republican values are. And so, we are seeing great movement in this. I've been traveling a lot to the battleground states. It is heartening to see Republicans standing by each other. And I think it's important because, I'm sure you know this very well more than anyone else. It can be lonely in this space and
Mm.
it's hard. Our families get threatened. We get, the ugliness. We get the hate from even people in our own families. It's very divisive and it feels very alone at times. But I do believe that the tide is changing and that people are like, okay, we're done with this. We're done with this extremism. And, the Republican Party of the past, I would say, is no longer there. And so right now, the best way forward is to stand together and support people like Kamala Harris and others, responsible candidates that are pro democracy and really are those values that make us Republicans. And we got to vote for the better candidates.
Amen. By the way, if you're not willing to stand for something, find a different job, right? It's
Yeah,
crazy to me that there's just a
exactly.
few of us. So, look, I know you have to go, so last question, make it as short as long as you wish, but you're one of the most patriotic people I know. But what some might not know is that when you resigned from the Trump administration, there were many in the administration who tried to disparage your service and misrepresent why you left the administration. As a national security official, you've advised on some of the most critical events over the last 2 decades. There's people running for office up and down the ballot with a D, R, or even in some cases an I after their name. What can you share with everyone tonight about why they should vote and what qualities they should consider of candidates as they prepare to go to the polls?
Sure. Look, I mean, our votes, your votes are the strongest voice, right? That's how representation matters. And you have the power to make a difference today. And you have the power to change the direction of everything that's happening, all the negativity, all the extremism that we're seeing in our country. Now is the moment. And, I hope that people, when they're looking around, they're looking for a brighter future. And I think it's important to look at the candidates that are running. I say look for integrity, look for selflessness. We need more selfless people with empathy, people who actually care about each other, the people that care about their communities and not just being selfish about themselves or whatever dear leader is telling them to do when they, decide to support one man, which, I'll just call it out, Donald Trump. I mean, this is about really making a difference for each other's lives and really standing together as a country and just saying, we are going to push back on this hateful hatred that we're seeing, this rhetoric. And also, I am the daughter of a Mexican immigrant. And I think, I appreciate you calling out like my patriotism. I'll say my mom still today on 4th of July, she gets tears in her eyes.
Mm.
Every 4th of July, she holds the American flag and she still cries because that's how
Mm.
much this country and the freedoms that this country gave her mean to her. And I say that that's how I was raised, right? And that's what
Mm.
drives me today to keep making a difference. And I'm just grateful for the people like you and others and, the country first family, as I'll call it, who are really looking at country over party and really hoping for a better future so that we can get away from what we're seeing right now because I believe that we're better than this.
You're here. Look, thank you for what you do. Thanks for absorbing the death threats, the loss of friendships. This is something that over the last couple of years I've really come to take account of is how much of an impact it really does have on you. We pretend like it doesn't. We like to think it doesn't. But in congruity and totality, it has a real impact. So thanks for being here. How can people follow you, by the way? What's the best way for them to keep in touch with what you're doing? Is it Twitter? Is it anything? What do you got?
Mostly Twitter. I'm on there on Olivia Troye, and then I'm on Threads and I'm on Instagram as well. So you'll find me on social media. If
Well,
you're
that's
kind, I
awesome.
might respond to messages. If you troll me, eh.
I know that feeling. Well,
Yeah.
God bless you, Olivia. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. Thanks
You
everyone.
bet.
Go
Yep.
vote. Go vote.
Go vote. So, to those tuning in, I just wanted to say thank you for joining tonight's Country Over Party rally. If you want to get more information on how you can make sure that you have all the information you need before the election or support efforts to get others out to vote, just go to the website, countryfirst.com, country1st.com. So, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Get out, vote early. Don't vote often because that would be illegal. Vote once, but make sure you get out and vote. So God bless you all. And remember to keep putting country over party.